Okay, hi everyone, this is SmithyQ from SmithyQ.com, and we're here now for our 7th in the Longplay series. So here, in some ways this game might not seem super interesting. That's always the risk when I'm commentating live games, right? Or I'm at the mercy of the moves that we end up playing. And so, long story short, if you reach a pretty standard position, I'm able to go into an endgame, and then he makes a blunder and loses, essentially, right? So in some ways, the game isn't, it's not going to be an all-time classic. At the same time, my opponent is rated 1700, and so he's not a beginner, and his mistake makes some sense in that he was under some pressure, and that tends to be when you make mistakes. So let's take a look at this game, and I'll share my thought process, and let's see how it goes. So I was black, my opponent played 2c4, and then in some ways I chicken out, because instead of playing g6 and the King's Indian, I played e6, and then we end up getting to a Nimzo structure, which is great. Again, the next couple of months I'll convert to the King's Indian 100%, but for now it's just in a 15-minute game. I wasn't feeling it. Hey, right? Anyway, the Nimzo by itself is an amazing opening. In fact, I would consider it to be pretty much the perfect opening. It reaches an unbalanced, asymmetrical position that is nonetheless completely even, and that neither side really has the advantage. But because it is so imbalanced, the position is so rich, strategically complex, the better player invariably wins. It's not like certain openings, like the King's Gambit, where all of a sudden a lucky tactic might appear. You can play perfectly normal moves, but then lose to, a sudden knight takes f7 sacrifice, something like that. No, the better player tends to outplay the weaker player here. To some extent, that's what happens. And if I could guaranteed I could get the Nimzo every single game, this would be my opening for life. 100%, no question. The problem is that white can avoid it in just about every way. Like, for example, we got bishop g5, or knight f3, or g3, or knight c3, bishop f4, all fairly common moves, and you can't play the Nimzo. After c4, e6, even here, you've got knights f3 or g3. Completely stop the Nimzo. And it's only if white plays these three moves that you can play the Nimzo. And I found in my experience, especially with how popular the London system is, you don't get the Nimzo enough, and so it doesn't really make sense to study this opening as an amateur. Which is too bad, because otherwise it's amazing. But again, maybe that's just me. To bishop b4, he ended up playing bishop d2, which is one of those. I mean, it's a move. It's not. It's not bad, but it's certainly not critical. And already if you don't know anything about the Nimzo, the positional battle tends to be between. Sooner or later, we're going to. I'll just put that on the board right now, just for illustration purposes. Is that white has the two bishops? Good job, white. Black is going to then struggle to either neutralize the two bishops. For example, we could play knight e4 and then exchange it right away. That's a possibility. Or, let's just put knight e4, is we can just put the knight on e4 and leave it there and try and use that to create play. The knight is quite good here. For instance, if white's careless, queen f6 or queen to h4, there's ideas there. We can imagine something with f5. We could try and help the knight with b6. Get the bishop here. And there's a whole host of possibilities. So the struggle is going to become, what is better, basically? The two bishops that white has, or the active knights and generally faster development that black has? And so it's a really fascinating struggle. And let's take a look. I castled. He played e3. Now here, there's a whole bunch of ways you could play. Black could try for c5 or d5. Let me put on the board, right? There's c5 ideas, there's d5 ideas, there's d6 and e5 ideas. There's so many ways you can play. And I play I guess my favorite way, the only way I really know how to play, I play with b6. So I can put my bishop on the long diagonal. That's just going to be great. Whoops, I can't draw arrows, just ignore that. He plays knight f3, bishop e7, bishop e2, d6. Now, another possibility, for the record, is to play with the ideas of c5 and d5, for instance, d5 right here, with the idea of eventually taking on c4, and then this bishop is completely opened up, and things are great. This is 100% fine, it's 100% good. Grandmaster games are played in this type of structure all the time. The problem, so to speak, is after take, we reach essentially an exchange, queen's gambit declined. I think this is like the Tartakower variation. I don't know. These tend to be... I consider these positions very, very dry. Some people love playing them. Again, that's great. But I just find the lack of central tension... This position does nothing for me. And so why would I play that? When I can play with the d6. And so I can maybe play c5 later, maybe I can play e5 later, or, like in the game, if we just look a couple moves ahead, I develop my knight. Notice I put it on d7, so that way the bishop is able to keep going. If I put the knight on c6, and then it's blocking my bishop, it's blocking my c-pawn, and that's just not very... my pieces are no longer harmoniously developed. He plays a3, take. And so, again, the positional struggle is completely clear right now. White has the two bishops, and if he can open the position up, if we can imagine that all the central pawns just disappear, white is not only better, he's quite better at that point. The two bishops are going to really, they'd really shine. However, the pawns are still there, and after knight e4, we can see black's compensation, or what black has in exchange for the two bishops. He has a beautiful knight. This is the best piece on the board. And then after he plays bishop d3, f5. And the position has now become akin to the Dutch. In fact, this is, you can probably reach this position from a classical Dutch move order. And with this pawn, of course, we're reinforcing e4. That's always great. But it also gives potential kingside attacking ideas. I used to play the Dutch back in the day. It was the first opening I had major success with against 1d4. Just because the attack tends to be pretty thematic. Is that usually you play something along the lines of g5 and g4 if you can. You can play rook f6 to rook h6, and we're attacking this way. The queen can either go to h4 directly, or if the knight is there, we can go queen e8 and then queen over here, and knight f6, knight g5. And we just see how all of black's pieces are able to go to the king side very, very quickly. In the game, he took on e4, which is instantly great for black, because now he no longer has the two bishops. And in the game, I ended up taking with the bishop. He moved his knight back, and I moved my bishop all the way back. Which is fine, which is a perfectly good way of playing. But it was probably not the best. The computer pointed out that this move is great because the knight has to retreat. Notice how the queen controls this diagonal, the pawn controls this square. So the knight be forced to go back. And let's just imagine, you know, queen h4. We can then think of something like this. Or this. Bring the other rook over. And black has a very thematic attacking type position. And it's not easy to get defenders over for white. Again, this pawn is doing great. It's stopping knight f3. This bishop is on the wrong side of the board, and with all the pawns on dark squares, it's really hard for this bishop to help at all. Also, if he ever plays d5, I can likely play e5, and again, there's that wall of pawns would keep it shut. I'll just put it on the board. Now, obviously, I should simply take it because I'm winning a pawn. However, this is a thematic idea, trying to keep him out. And so, taking with the pawn would have led to a good attacking position. I didn't consider that. That was a mistake on my part. You should always consider every candidate move. Anyway, knight d2, I come all the way back. Then he plays queen h5, which is kind of a funky one. And then here again, I played my move a little bit too quickly. I played knight f6. I mean, what's more natural than that? You're moving the knight to a better square, you're controlling e4 more, and we're attacking the queen. I mean, we're getting tempi. It looks great. But if you recall to just a few moves ago, where I mentioned one of Black's main ideas is a kingside attack. And if I were thinking that way, honestly, I know there is attacking potential in my position, but I wasn't really thinking attack right here. I was just trying to create a safe, solid position and then see what happens. If I were thinking more aggressively, or if I were just thinking, you know, what my long-term plan is, rather than just developing my pieces, I would have found rook f6, which is a huge move. We're going to move the rook here. We're attacking the queen. The queen will have to move, probably all the way back. We can then bring the... Let's just put that on the board, actually. Let's say, like, he does nothing. Well, we would go here. Queen has to go back. We go here. We're threatening mate. And if he tries to stop it with h3, we've got a thematic sacrifice right here. And that's just... that's devastation. He can't take it because that's instant mate. Not very good. And so this rook f6, White would need to be extremely careful. And Black has an incredible attack already for free because this queen h5 does nothing. But instead, I played knight f6. He moves his queen here. I start thinking, I think this is my first long think. No, only 30 seconds. It felt longer at the time. I guess we were kind of blitzing these moves out, which is always a danger. Anyway, I played probably the best move. In these types of positions, again, if he ever plays d5, I really want to get e5 in. Also, maybe I can get my queen over to the king side. And so I play queen e8. Again, I'm hoping to get this. That'd be great. Maybe I can move the queen over here, use the long diagonal. That's always possible. That's it. The main idea is to try and push this e5, if I can. He plays f3. And then here I make just a silly move. Queen f7. This is funny because we can see here that I spent 2 minutes on this move before I played queen f7. Queen f7 doesn't lose or anything, but what's happening here is when I play queen f7, we'll see it. I play queen f7, he plays rook f2, and then I move my rook over. And that was it. But queen f7, we should instantly go, I don't know about this move, because the rook is facing the queen. And what am I going to do next? Where's the queen going to go? What's the idea? I didn't really have a good idea. And we'll see that, okay, he plays rook f2, I bring my rook over, he ends up playing e4. And if my queen weren't here, all right, I control this square more. But the problem is, if I were to take, I can't take with either piece because of the pin, right? If I take with this, whoops, that's silly, don't do that. But if I take with this, okay, same thing, he can take. So I suppose I'm able to win his queen back. But this has just been completely unnecessary. Why am I going through this? So after e4, I ended up playing queen h5. Getting my queen out of the way, trying to go into an endgame. Take, take. And if we just back up, again, I could have played queen h5 right here and saved myself a tempi. So, not the most inspiring play so far from me. Queen h5, take, take. And then he pushed here. And this is the main, I guess it's not the main mistake. Strategically, it is a very poor move for my opponent. Let's think about this. So my opponent's got this nice big center. What should he do? The real problem is, well, he no longer has the two bishops. If he had the two bishops, the idea is simple. He wants to open the position up. As it is, he has a dark square bishop. And Capablanca had the rule, he stated this way back when, so it's, 100 years old now. He said, if you have a bishop, you want to put your pawns on the opposite color of that bishop. And that's it. When he plays e5, now these pawns are on the same color as bishop. And I take it gladly. And so now this bishop, what's it doing? It's staring at a pawn. That's it. If this pawn weren't there, or if the pawn were back on e4 or move over to d5, then the bishop is great. It's alive. It can do something. White's happy. Instead, this bishop practically doesn't exist right now. It's pretty terrible. Compare that with my bishop. Now, it's true I have my pawns on light squares. Let's see. But my bishop has a very active diagonal. If I can ever coerce him to play f4 to try and defend his pawn, well, then the bishop is incredibly active. Very, very alive. Also potential is I can go here. I can attack his pawn. Right? So things are great. For me, my bishop is the better bishop. I'm also the first one to the d file, so I can play rook to d8. If he tries to match it, well then his knight's actually pinned because there's nothing defending, and I'd be able to double very, very quickly, bring my pieces in. And from this point forward, we can get the sense that white is really feeling the pressure. And we can feel that with his moves. He plays knight to b3. Now again, he entered this endgame willingly. Okay, I offered the exchange of queens. He took, then he played this, right? So he willingly entered this structure. I take the d file, then he played knight b3. What's the idea? There are two possibilities here. One is that he wants to play c5, which would get rid of this pawn, and then his knight can come to a good square potentially. Or he wants to play knight to d4, which would hit this pawn. All right, that's pretty good. He could also potentially come here, which would fork these pawns. And that's great. But I have a move that simply stops both of them. I play c5. Now he can't play c5, he can't play d4. Also, look, it's another pawn in a dark square. This further restricts what he can do. And this knight has no idea why it's here anymore. It has no way forward. And so a very easy and thematic move for me to play. I didn't think too long on that one at all. The downside to this move is that this square is weak. And so if he could get a knight there, that'd be great. How does he get a knight there? All right, so we'd have to go something like this. All right, how does he get to that square? It looks like here. And how does he get to that square? Something like this. So if he gets 5 tempi, he might be able, he have to move the bishop as well. He might be able to get his knight to a really good square, but I could also play a6 anytime and stop that. So no real positional weakness for me. He plays rook d2. So he's trying to contest the d file. So I play bishop a6. I'm now threatening the pawn. And the only way you can defend the pawn is if the knight's on d2. But the knight can't go to d2 as long as there's a rook there. And so he's forced to exchange rooks. So look what's happened. I have... okay, then he plays knight d2. Okay. Let's just back up 3 moves. So we look at this position. And then we jump to this position. All right? So we got here. Sorry, let me back up 1 move. We'll go d takes e5. All right? So this was last white's move, and then the most recent. Right? Last, most recent. Last, most recent. So what's happened? Basically, his rook has disappeared. That's the only difference in the white position. Whereas black, my bishop, is now attacking his pawn. My rook is the only one to open f-file. My knight is ready to jump in here. Black has improved his position over the last few moves, whereas white has done nothing. And this is how you positionally outplay an opponent. I play knight f4. And here, the pressure was basically too much, I guess, for my opponent. He played g3. He played it far too quickly, trying to kick my knight back. But I mean, this is pretty simple. There's no real excuse for this in a 15-minute game. And this isn't the hardest tactic in the world to see. The thing is, if he doesn't play that, let's say he plays the more natural move. King f2. Black, my idea would be to play g5. So I'm gaining space on the king side, okay? If he were to play g3, I have a couple of options. Does this work? Maybe. I don't know. Does this work? Checking him, maybe, and locking my knight in. That's certainly possible. Simplest is probably, can I delete the arrows, to just move the knight back to g6, where I'm always hitting this pawn, which means this bishop needs to always watch that pawn, which means the bishop can't go to a better square. And then I'm going to slowly ratchet up the pressure. Maybe I can keep moving the pawns. I'm going to get my king into the game somehow. Maybe invade over here onto this square. And we're just going to keep moving. Black is better, not a lot better, but better. And again, this is the type of position that the better player is going to win. I'm almost, 150 points higher than my opponent, so I should be better. I should keep pressing. As it is, again, he blundered. Whoops. g3. There's maybe one more interesting spot here. Is that I had the option of taking the pawn. But then after rook d1, he has counterplay. We can imagine, this, and then that pawn's going to drop. And his rook is on the 7th rank, and it's doing very, very well. He can harass all my pawns. Why would I allow that? And so I'm not going to go through this super in-depth. I'm up a piece, right? But if we look at my process here, is I kept my rook on the open file. So now he can't do anything. He can't defend the c4 pawn. So I take it. Right? He plays a4. Well, now I can jump in. He's got to move his king away. Again, if he goes here, he's just into a discover attack, and that's going to be very bad for him. So he's moved it back. And now, if he tries to take the d file, it's not going to work because I can always put my rook right back. Or, as we'll see in the game, I put my bishop here. He plays a6, that's great. I move my king up. He moves his king. I move my king. He moves his king. He's just playing really, really fast. I'm not sure really what he's doing. And so all I need to do here is push my advantage. Again, I'm up a piece. Am I up pawns as well? Yeah, I'm up pawns. So I can easily win this pawn with my rook, or I can just push these pawns. And this is what I do. Rook goes over, I then push the pawn. He keeps moving his king, but his king can't do anything over there. I win the last pawn. I play c3, because now my bishop defends the pawn. He moves back. Doesn't matter. I just keep pushing the pawn. And this leads to an easily winning position. Pawn, pawn, pawn. Take, take. Up a queen. He took the pawn, but then he resigned before I could give mate. This again, it's going to be. I could even just get another queen if I wanted to, right? So there's no problem here. And I have 13 minutes on the clock. I'm not going to lose on time. It's not a blitz game. So that's not the most interesting thing in the world, but it does highlight when you're up a huge amount of material, right? Playing rook takes h2, again, it's a perfectly fine move. It's not going to lose anything, but it gives him hope. It gives you a greater chance to mess up. I just kept it simple, and pretty soon I got an even more dominant position. So that's that. Again, maybe that's interesting. I mean, again, the game is essentially decided by a one-move blunder, but there are quite a few ideas, and the positional ideas are rich. This is, again, it's a really good opening, especially if you are a better player, or if you want to develop your positional sense, your positional side, playing this type of opening. Even if you lose to a better player, you're going to realize you're going to learn positional lessons. And then also, when it comes to mistakes, I talked about how my opponent, he was feeling the pressure, the position, and that's how he blundered. That's what we want to do in our own games. Is we want to, often we make blunders because we're under pressure. And it helps to realize that, so that way you can double check and don't make moves rashly, especially pawn moves near your king. So that's that. Hopefully you found that useful or educational in some way. Love to hear feedback, comments. Let me know. Play another game next week. Maybe another one as well, because this game was... I'll keep trying to play games at least once a week. Otherwise, that's that. So again, SmithyQ, SmithyQ.com. Within a couple days, I'll have a full written analysis on my blog, as well as I've been kind of lazy. I haven't done the previous games. I'll be posting them as well. So you can check that out on SmithyQ.com. I'd love to hear comments, feedback. That'd be great. I love talking about chess, so leave comments or write me messages, and I'll try and get back to you. Otherwise, that's that. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.